It's always nice to hear from my friend Tom Chalky. He and his wife have created a new library called the Century Library, and I'm going to walk through a couple highlights of this thing. This is not a regular Tom Chalky website. This is a library of vintage images. Let's explore what's going on inside the Century Library. So I want to point out as we jump into this beautiful vintage library here called centurylibrary.com, there's no affiliate link. I'm not affiliated with these guys in any way. I just happen to use these designs and I love these designs. I use them quite a bit and I actually do make sales from this stuff. So this is all vintage old illustrations here. I'm just going to pop one open. We can see here, this is like a page from like an old encyclopedia or an old Craftsman illustrations book. And what you can do is simply click the download button over on the top right hand side on any one of these individual designs and you can download it for free. So I'm just going to pick one here, for example, this one here. We can see here this is a nice pattern from an old vintage encyclopedia or art book. And I just go to the top right and I click download. And then I can click a free account to download the low resolution design. You're going to get to a page that looks like this. You can simply register over on the right hand side. This is different than the Tom Chalky website itself. So there's all sorts of things to explore here when you get on the Century website. I would just recommend when you're on the main site, there's this little menu right at the top. So I'm going to pick something here that speaks to me. I'm going to go in here to military and we'll see what pops up. We can see there's old vintage flags and old vintage portraits. And then there's some nice PNG images with transparent backgrounds of some vintage images here as well. So I'm going to go in and grab, for example, this flag design right here. We can see here it's an old Highlanders flag on a vintage piece of paper from 1885. I'll simply click the download button on the top right hand side and I can click the low resolution download. And right there a JPEG image pops up that I can now grab. So you may be wondering how big the low res image is. When I go here to details, we can see it's 72 dots per inch. It's 1500 by 953 pixels. When I pop it open, it's a decent sized image and you can certainly zoom in and you can certainly see there's no watermark or anything on it. So if you don't need a 300 DPI image, these fit the bill great. You could use these for t-shirts, coffee mugs, some low res images. I wouldn't recommend them for super high end prints, but you could make some sort of a t-shirt design out of this or a military design. You could make a fine art print out of it. Just be aware it's not 300 DPI. Tom Chalky is known for its maps, and the Century Library is no exception here. When I click on maps, you're going to see some absolutely stunning old vintage maps that come up. Now, these are original scans of like a physical document, so you're going to see there's some discoloration here on some of these older pages, but that's okay. You could always go into Photoshop or Affinity Photo, and you could certainly monkey around with the design. I think this is absolutely fantastic. Again, you can click low res download over on the right hand side. Now there is a subscription option which costs money and that's where you would get the high res designs. Maps are really popular on print on demand because people are looking for very specific locations. And of course people really like vintage maps when it comes to the whole globe, especially old-timey maps where, you know, people are sailing off the edge of the earth, that kind of thing. There's different collections as well. This one's called the William Tolbelson collection, and these are old vintage black and white illustrations. In this case here, this is from 1840, and it's got a beautiful frame around it. So you could do one of two things. You could either download this image simply to use the image, or you could grab the frame, which is also nice, and you could delete out the image using Photoshop or Affinity Photo. That would be a nice option as well. Here's another collection called the David Wooster Archive, and this is old botanical prints. These are fantastic if you're making images for, say, a kitchen or a pantry. A lot of people really like botanical images inside of their kitchen, and there's lots of high quality scans here of all sorts of different flora and spices and things like that that are perfect for the kitchen. This one's called the William Melvin Archive. This again is the military stuff that we were looking at earlier, but it also includes a lot of old vintage illustrations, portraits, and landscapes as well. This is a nice one. A lot of battle scenes. This is from 1885. All right, I'll put a link in the video description below. This is just a little teaser taster here of the vintage stock images sitting in the Century Library. Again, it's completely free if you want to download the low-res images. There are things as well that are a little more boring, but I think they're really important if you're using print-on-demand images. And these are like what I call connector images or utility images. And these are things like borders and frames. And that can be really helpful as well if you're doing decorative art I think these are fantastic. And again, free, low-res download image. Sensory Library, thanks a lot for watching. Thank you, Tom Chalky and his wife, for making this stuff available for us to use. The low-res images certainly fit the bill in my world for a lot of the print-on-demand stuff that I work on. And I love the fact that there's a lot of transparent background images as well. These are very helpful when you're making t-shirt designs or any sort of print-on-demand designs. Here's another video on how you can get free stuff to help supercharge your print-on-demand journey. Thanks a lot for watching.